one of those who, in actual fact, does their very best to try and strike down that malignancy is the Taxpayers Union and the Free Speech Union as well. And it is something that came across also at the weekend, I have to say, to do with that, and I'll just find it at the moment. Here it is. The Free Speech Union put out, end of last week, and I didn't give it enough time, in actual fact, a concerning report of the New Zealand Medical Council silencing dissenting voices. And again, this related back to COVID, but we now look back, I have to say, at COVID and the response of New Zealanders, of the New Zealand policymakers to that, and realise that we flirted with communism, or at least totalitarianism, in the worst possible way, and how easy it was to turn ordinary New Zealanders into East Germans. Anyhow, but the latest suggestion of how bad that got and how bad it still gets has been highlighted by the Free Speech Union. Joining us to talk about that and to give us something of I guess an overview of what next is Stephanie Martin, who's the Free Speech Union Stakeholder Relationships Manager. Oh, gosh, that's a mouthful. Stephanie, welcome to the show. What's a Stakeholder Relationships Manager? You have to be nice to the people who give you money. Is that the story?
Well, stakeholders involves all of the people who are involved in the organisation, right? So we're talking about people who are within the professions, working in the professions, who are experiencing threats and violations to their free speech rights. It's really everyone involved in concerns for free speech. And all of our members as well will be considered stakeholders. So it's really everyone who's part of the wider Free Speech Union.
You've still got a bit of just schmoozing in that job, though. You've developed a bit of a tolerance for alcohol, I would suggest.
Well, it's really relationships based, right? So it's talking with people and connecting with people, and that's something that I really love to do. So
good on you. Oh, we couldn't send Una Jogosen into that one. All right, and we don't need to. Listen, you have released last week, the Free Speech Union, a particular medical council ruling, I think, that published dissenting medical practitioners who expressed concern during the COVID-19 vaccinations. I remember many of them got drummed out of the profession, or at least there was an attempt to do so. And you've taken up their cause in October 2024. Why?
Well, it's what's happened is it's come to light for us. We've had an article come out last week by an organisation called the Centrist, who released a report which was sort of detailing some of the information from a court proceeding that's taken place just within the last month, which is New Zealand doctors speaking up with science against Medical Council. So they've brought a charge against Medical Council, and it's just bringing more attention to some of the behaviour that went on with Medical Council during this time. So one of the things that the court case is sort of built around is a whistleblower whose name is Richard Aston, who was on the Medical Council at the time, who's come out and talked more about the sort of circumstances and environment in the Medical Council while these directives were being put out, and also information about a guidance statement that Medical Council released at that time, which was pretty heavy-handed in its wording and essentially said to doctors that, you can have your own personal opinions sort of in your spare time, but there is no place for anti-vaccination messages in professional health practice. And so it very much was limiting what medical practitioners were able to express to their patients. And along with that, we saw a raft of penalties put against doctors for breaching the guidance statements, which there are a multitude of problems with that process, which we can get into.
And yet at the time, as I recall, there was no dissent outside what you'd call at the time anti-vax circles at the heavy-handed treatment of doctors. I remember there was one GP, God, was it somewhere in the Bay of Plenty or in some remote area, that he had to stop practicing because he actually said, well, I intend to give information before you make an informed statement. It wasn't 100% doctrinaire of what the Ministry of Health were putting out at the time. There were others who I think joined various associations that would take, obviously, these kind of legal actions. The really interesting thing is, where were the Free Speech Union then on this issue?
Well, really, it was in its early stages at that point in time, right? So it's there have been a lot of fires to be sort of working towards in the last few years, and so like our concerns really were in a different space at that point in time. But there's just been a lot to cover, hasn't there? There's been a lot
listen,
of.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but the reason I'm asking you the question is because there was an automatic, almost mass acceptance of that kind of action, judgment and action that was taken at the time. Now what you're doing, and I don't have a problem with it, is you're looking in the rear vision mirror and going, uh-oh, that was wrong. Is that fair to say?
Well, I mean, I think really the Free Speech Union came into its current form in 2021, and it was very, very much a sort of grassroots organisation at that point in time that was sort of only just getting off the ground during this time. So I'm not sure that it's really we can really cast an eye back on that and say, well, where were you when it was sort of in its initial stages, and it was forming around hate speech laws, which I'm sure you would agree was also a very valid sort of source of attention that was being given. So it seems to me that really what we need to be doing here is to be learning the lessons from what went on at that point in time, and use those lessons to inform us if anything similar were to happen in the future, to take what we've learned from that period in time, to take some of these violations, I would say, of free speech, learn the lessons from them and carry those lessons forward so that we don't make the same mistakes again as a society and community.
Yeah, except, good question. The government comes out with an anti-vaccination, the medical council and health authorities come out with a guidance statement around vaccination. It's happening right now. They are saying that vaccination rates, particularly for young children, have been dropping off, Stephanie. And as a consequence of that, there is an attempt to try and boost vaccination rates, because vaccination is seen as a good thing, particularly, say, measles, mumps, and rubella for early childhood children, things like that, kiddies and things like that. But if you've got rogue doctors and nurses who are saying, well, and who are coming up with a dissenting viewpoint and actively dissuading their patients from getting immunised, where do you stand on that? Do you say, well, that's fair enough, they're entitled to have a dissenting viewpoint and they're entitled to inform their patients of such, when the outcome is anti-public policy?
Well, the thing here is that doctors are entitled, and this is within their professional codes, right? They're entitled to be able to exercise their own professional judgment in the kinds of treatments that they think are appropriate for their patients. And really the concern here, as far as free speech goes, is whether they're able to ask questions and whether they're able to, I mean, we really want to stay focused on what we're talking about here with medical counsel, right? But at the end of the day, it's a vaccination guideline that the Ministry of Health put out. The Medical Council held those accountable, they would say, for those who resisted that guideline and provided alternative information to their patients. That's why they ended up in front of the Medical Council, yeah? But we're talking about something quite specific here, because all of this has came about at the time as a result of a guidance statement that got issued back in 2021. And it's been revoked as of, I think, September last year, shortly after the court case got brought against them. So what we're talking about here is very specifically to do with Medical Council's actions around that guidance statement and the ways in which it prohibited doctors from exercising their professional speech rights.